My name is Selena Brooks. I am 34 years old, and the most humiliating night of my life happened at my younger sister's wedding. The strange thing about public humiliation is that it never starts loudly. It starts with smiles, soft voices, and people pretending cruelty is only a joke. That night, I stood inside a luxury ballroom in Malibu surrounded by flowers, golden lights, and hundreds of wealthy guests while my own mother slowly turned me into entertainment for the room. Her name was Veronica Brooks, a woman admired by everyone who never truly knew her. In public she looked graceful, elegant, and sophisticated, but behind closed doors she had a habit of making one daughter feel valuable while making the other feel invisible. My younger sister Amelia was always the favorite. She was charming, beautiful, soft-spoken, and perfectly matched the image my mother wanted to present to society. I was different. I questioned things. I refused to stay silent when something felt unfair. Over time, my mother stopped treating me like a daughter and started treating me like a disappointment she needed to correct. Even when I was young, she mocked my choices, my clothes, and my dreams. When Amelia received awards, my mother celebrated her proudly in front of everyone. But when I started building my own business from nothing, she called it embarrassing and unstable. While other people saw success, she only saw a daughter she could not control anymore. At 22, I started a small catering service with one borrowed van and almost no money. I worked day and night, survived on little sleep, and slowly turned that tiny business into a luxury hospitality company called Silver Crown Events. There were months I could barely pay bills, nights I cried from exhaustion, and mornings I forced myself to continue because nobody else was going to save me. But even during my hardest years, my family never respected the effort. My father, Richard Brooks, avoided conflict completely. Whenever my mother insulted me, he stayed silent like peace mattered more than truth. That silence hurt almost as much as the insults themselves. Years later, after one painful family dinner where my mother publicly announced Amelia was the only daughter she trusted with anything meaningful, I finally stopped visiting. Nobody apologized. Instead, relatives called me dramatic for protecting my peace. That is how toxic families work sometimes. The person who gets hurt becomes the problem while the one causing pain keeps their reputation untouched. 6 years later, an invitation arrived at my apartment in Newport Coast. Amelia was getting married. Inside the envelope was a handwritten note asking me to come because she missed me and wanted the family together again. I almost refused immediately. A part of me believed nothing had changed. But another part of me still missed my little sister. Maybe I wanted closure. Maybe I wanted proof that people could grow. So I accepted. The wedding took place at a luxury oceanfront resort overlooking the cliffs of California. Everything looked perfect from the outside. White roses covered the ceremony area, candles glowed beside the walkways, and musicians played softly as guests arrived in expensive suits and designer gowns. When Amelia hugged me, for one brief moment I remembered the little girl who used to follow me around the house asking endless questions. But the warmth disappeared quickly once the reception started. My mother greeted me coldly, complimented my dress in a way that sounded more like relief than kindness, and seated me far away from the family tables. I sat beside strangers while distant relatives pretended not to notice. Every small detail reminded me that I was invited only because appearances required it. As dinner began, conversations shifted toward careers and marriage. Someone politely asked what I did for work. Before I could answer fully, my mother laughed softly and said, "Selena likes to pretend she runs important events, but mostly she just follows wealthy people around and calls it success." Some guests laughed awkwardly, assuming it was harmless family teasing. I smiled politely and stayed calm. Then my mother stood with a champagne glass in her hand and started speaking louder so nearby tables could hear. She praised Amelia for becoming a respectable woman people could admire. Then she turned toward me and said some people spend their whole lives chasing attention without becoming truly dependable. The room grew quieter. I felt every eye moving toward me while she continued mocking my career, my independence, and my unmarried life. Finally, she smiled proudly and said, "At least one of my daughters became someone people can actually be proud of." Amelia looked horrified. My father stared at the floor. Guests shifted uncomfortably while silence spread through the ballroom. In that moment, I understood something clearly. Respect inside families is not optional. Parents have rights over children, but children also deserve dignity, fairness, and kindness. A mother should never humiliate her daughter publicly just to feed her own pride. A sister should never stay silent while another sister is insulted. And a father should never confuse silence with wisdom when someone in his family is being emotionally hurt. Families are meant to protect each other, not destroy one child to elevate another. I stood slowly, smiled calmly, and said, "Congratulations on the perfect evening." Then I walked away while the entire ballroom watched in silence. As I walked toward the service corridor near the ballroom, something suddenly caught my attention. The staff uniforms looked familiar. The way servers communicated, the event coordination system, even the transport boxes near the kitchen entrance felt recognizable. Then I noticed the logo printed on one of the equipment cases. Silver Crown Events. My company. 3 months earlier, we had acquired a luxury catering brand that handled high-end weddings across California, and apparently Amelia's wedding had been booked through them before the acquisition finalized. My mother had just publicly humiliated me at an event fully operated by my own company without realizing it. For a second, I almost laughed from disbelief. Not because the situation was funny, but because life sometimes exposes arrogance in the most unexpected ways. One of the floor managers recognized me immediately and looked nervous. I stepped aside, called my operations director, and calmly confirmed the contract details. The wedding fell fully under our company authority. After hearing what happened publicly, my director asked quietly if I wanted the situation documented. I answered yes. Then I instructed management to suspend food service according to the company's hostile conduct clause protecting employees and ownership from abusive treatment during events. I did not scream. I did not create a public scene. I simply refused to continue supporting an environment built on humiliation. Within minutes, the ballroom atmosphere began changing. Servers stopped bringing plated meals. Dessert preparation paused. Staff quietly moved equipment away from the service area while guests started whispering in confusion. At first nobody understood what was happening. Then the wedding planner rushed toward my mother looking panicked. I watched the exact moment confidence disappeared from her face after learning who actually owned the company serving the wedding. She looked at me with shock and anger mixed together, as if she could not accept that the daughter she spent years dismissing had built something powerful enough to change the entire evening with one calm decision. Amelia hurried toward me in tears asking what was happening. I looked at her gently and explained the truth. Silver Crown owns the catering company. Public humiliation toward ownership and staff violated the contract terms. My mother exploded with anger, accusing me of ruining the wedding. But for the first time in years, I refused to accept blame for consequences created by her own behavior. I answered calmly, no. I simply refused to continue funding my own disrespect. My father finally tried to intervene, but his voice carried no authority anymore because silence for years eventually destroys trust. The room behind us filled with whispers while guests realized the situation was much deeper than ordinary family drama. That night ended in chaos, but something important finally became visible. Everyone in that ballroom saw the truth our family spent years hiding. Respect cannot survive where humiliation becomes normal. Parents deserve honor, love, and kindness, but they also carry responsibility toward their children. Favoritism between siblings creates wounds that sometimes last decades. A child who grows independent should not be treated like a threat. And forgiveness does not mean allowing people endless access to hurt you repeatedly. Real family relationships require compassion, accountability, and fairness from everyone involved. A few days later, Amelia called me privately. She apologized sincerely for years of silence and admitted she should have defended me long ago. That conversation mattered more than revenge ever could. Slowly she began creating healthier boundaries with our parents and understanding that love should never depend on constant obedience. My mother never truly apologized, but for the first time she lost control over the story she spent years shaping. People had witnessed her cruelty themselves. As for me, I moved forward peacefully. My business continued growing, my employees remained loyal, and I finally understood something life had been trying to teach me for years. Protecting your dignity is not selfish. Walking away from disrespect is not cruelty. And family bonds only remain strong when mutual rights are honored with sincerity, mercy, and respect. Sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is stand up quietly, protect their self-respect, and refuse to remain seated at a table where humiliation is being served like part of the meal. According to Islamic teachings, parents deserve respect, kindness, and honor no matter how difficult situations become, but Islam also teaches parents to treat their children with justice, mercy, and fairness. A mother or father should never humiliate one child to praise another because favoritism creates pain, jealousy, and emotional wounds inside families. In Islam, dignity matters for every person. Words can heal hearts or destroy them, which is why respect inside the home is extremely important. A good family is not built on control, public embarrassment, or silence during oppression. It is built on compassion, patience, understanding, and accountability from everyone. Children should speak politely, control anger, and avoid disrespect toward parents, but parents must also understand that constant criticism, comparison, and humiliation can deeply damage relationships. A sister should support her sister instead of staying silent when she is hurt. A father should protect peace through fairness, not through ignoring wrong behavior. Islam teaches that strong families are those where people forgive sincerely, respect boundaries, and treat each other with kindness even during disagreements. Sometimes protecting your self-respect is necessary, but revenge, arrogance, and hatred should never control the heart. The real lesson is that love without respect becomes painful, and silence toward repeated humiliation only allows the damage to continue. True honor comes from character, justice, patience, and the way we treat the people closest to us behind closed doors, not just in public.